I'm going to talk about one of the last really good cars that Nissan made. 2001 Nissan Sentra SER. This car was made before Renault started ruining Nissan. Yeah, they had bought the company, but they hadn't really changed anything yet. And in this case, the SER stands for more than just putting these red-lined bucket racing seats. It meant what was under the hood. SER had a special engine in it. For 15 grand, you get over 200 horsepower. Made it to a 6-speed standard transmission. This baby is quick. Being a relatively small car, you get off the line. And it does have 4 doors, so you can put a few people in it. Now, yeah, time has been kind to this car. Nissan paint jobs weren't so hot back in the day. But this baby's got 152,000 miles on it. It's still going strong. And you have to add in the fact that the customer who owns this drives like a maniac. He's keeping this as a toy because he just bought a brand new Civic Type R. He was thinking about replacing this with a Nissan or Infiniti till I talked him out of it and said, the way you drive, get a Civic Type R. He loves the car and he'll probably have it for decades like he's had this thing. But back in the day, this 2001 was a deal for that price. Decent suspension, solid 6-speed tranny, and a 4-cylinder engine that's still got good gas mileage if you didn't drive like a maniac. The centerpiece of this car, the engine, doesn't have one of those flimsy rubber timing belts like a lot of cars did back in those days. It's got timing chain. They're set up well. As you can see here, this has got the brace so you don't get any body flex when you're cornering. But let's face it, if you saw this thing today going down the road looking like this Nissan Sentra, you might think, oh, what a clunker, till he goes blowing by. It still has get up and go. This car bypassed Nissan's horrendous 4-cylinder automatic transmissions, those Jatco junkers, in favor of a standard that's extremely reliable. And the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, they didn't have head gasket problems like all the modern Sentras have. Realize that historically, Nissan's been a good engine building company. They made the first real reliable zippy sports cars, the 240s, the 260s. It's a shame that they merged with Renault and started to make a bunch of crap. I got customers with modern Sentras and Altimas, horrible cars as they age. I mean, you can buy one brand new, if you put 50, 60,000 miles on it, it's probably okay, but it's not gonna hold a fort for decades, and 150,000 miles like this thing has and still be running strong without working on the engine or the transmission or the electronics. And sure, it's like any modern car. Plastic crap, the handle's broken, but if you reach in, it does still work. A little car like this with front wheel discs and rear wheel discs and a tight suspension system, they're still fun to drive. And if it were my car, I'd take off the SER emblem and just leave the Sentra. And people would think, oh, look at that crappy Nissan Sentra. Then you could blow right by them. Now, for those who know about cars, a car that was this cheap but had a 6-speed manual transmission hooked up to a limited slip differential means this baby can handle corners fast. You don't find cars in this price range and this size that have limited slip differential. It is a killer on twisty roads. It's so sad that they ruined the cars after they merged with Renault, because they had a good thing going here. A 4-door car that you can fit a reasonable amount of people in, but still have serious driving experience, or ones that have rear seats that you can fit tiny little people in there, babies and baby seats, but full-grown adults are going to be groaning after a little while in those back seats. And the suspension system is 16% stiffer than the stock. It really corners well, but doesn't ride that bad. So now you know, as far as I'm concerned, what's one of the last good Nissans that were built. When they were making these R-Series Sentras, they had a good thing going. It's a shame they let it go, because just try finding a zippy little car like this for $15,000 today. It's an impossibility, even if you pay $8,000 or $10,000 more. It doesn't have the quality that this old thing had. And what the heck, with a little loving care and a lot of paint, you could bring this thing back to new, blowing people off the road with a Nissan Sentra. So I've got a 2017 here now. A lot of people are trying to find an economy SUV, they look at a Nissan Rogue. This thing's got enough energy. It's a 170 horsepower 4-cylinder engine. Take a look at it under the hood. It's got a 170 horsepower 4-cylinder engine. Enough power to pull it around, but it also has the relatively weak Nissan Jatco CVT transmission. And that is the true weakness of this vehicle. I don't like Jatco transmissions. I'm not a fan of CVT transmissions in general, even when they're new. As far as I'm concerned, they're relatively sloppy transmissions. Now, this particular one gets about 26 miles a gallon in town, which is good for a SUV, and 33 on the highway. The CVT transmissions are efficient, I'll give them that. But number one, I don't like the way they drive. And number two, in these Nissans, I don't like the way they fall apart before their time. I've seen scores of these Nissan CVTs break down. Normally the customer gets rid of the car when they find out it's going to cost anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 to fix it correctly. They just give up on the vehicle. But on a positive note, generally they don't fall apart till they get more than 100,000 miles. If you're satisfied with that, you can be satisfied with one of these Rogues. As we check inside, all black. Cloth seats, but they're very comfortable. Got the usual dash, just about everything you're going to see in a normal car. And when you go in the back, you can say, Kitarima. And the trunk itself, these things have plenty of room inside them. And you flip things back, you can have even more room. It's got the nice flip down armrest with cup holders. Got the heat and air conditioning blowing into the back. Pretty well designed. Disc brakes front and back. Stops quite well. Let's take it for a spin. Got the old keyless remote, so you just push the button. Starts right up. Now we'll see how it takes off. Not bad, but I am not a CVT fan. You can see it revs up pretty high when you're trying to take off fast. And for a little SUV, it rides pretty smooth. You know, you're going to feel bumps here and there, but it's not bad ride. It's got a decent ride to it. Now we got a little straightaway. We'll check it out. See, it kind of sounds like a motorboat to me. And they just seem to be slipping to me when you're going. Most of the CVTs, they sacrifice acceleration and crisp handling. As you can hear, it's a relatively quiet vehicle. It's not particularly noisy. Has a decent ride for a small wheelbase. As a typical Japanese car, I put the AC on full blast, as cold as it goes, 60 degrees. It's putting out nice cold air. The Japanese are great with air conditioners. Now, if you're buying one of these Rogues, it's kind of a crapshoot. They make them in Japan, they make them in Korea, and they make them in the United States. Well, I know the codes, and if it's got the number 5 code as the first VIN, it means this thing wasn't made in Japan or Korea. It was made in the United States. So when we go down here, we see the VIN number. There it is. It starts with a 5. So this one was made in the United States. Even though if you look at the top, it says manufactured by Nissan Motor Company Limited. That doesn't tell you anything. It's the VIN number that tells you. Now this particular Rogue, it's 3 years old. And if we look at the speedo, it's got 57,580 miles on it. So I wouldn't expect much to be wrong with it. I'm doing a four-wheel brake job because the brake pads are worn down to the squealer and it's all worn out. Aside from that, he hasn't done anything except change the oil and the thing. So here, brand new, for $24,600, you're getting a decent SUV. But on the other hand, for $2,000 more, you could have bought a RAV4. I'm too cheap to buy anything new, but if I was, I'd fork the $2,000 extra to get Toyota's reliability. Especially you're going to keep a vehicle a long time. But as I said, this has got 57,000. Brake job's the first major work done on it. Now, yeah, the CVT transmission, it could easily break when it gets 100-something thousand miles on it, where the RAV4 would keep going. Now, if they would have put better transmissions in these things, I would tell more people to buy them. But as it stands, the Jatco CVTs are just not great transmissions. They're a decent-looking SUV. They got the design right. The interior is well set up. And for you people out there who really like saving money, you can get a used one of these if you can find a low mileage one, tons cheaper than the Toyotas. You look for a good used RAV4, people want a ton of money because they're popular. Everybody knows they can last a long time. Just don't go out and buy one that's got like 140,000 miles and pay much for it, because odds are that CVT transmission is going to go out and you're going to have a really big expense. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.